Greetings! Today I'm going to be reviewing The Saviour's Champion by Jenna Moreci. It's a dark fantasy romance novel. So before I get into my review, I'm going to give a basic overview of the plot real quick. So in the fictional kingdom of Thesson, there's this magical queen lady called the Saviour. Everything was like really terrible in the kingdom, and then she was born. She had glowing skin and like magical healing powers and all that. And then, yeah, everything got better after she was born. So they made her the queen. Eventually she had a daughter and passed on her powers to her daughter, and eventually died. And her daughter took her place as the new saviour, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Until we get to the Saviour's Champion, which takes place a few hundred years after the first Saviour. I'm not sure exactly how many generations there's been, but there's been a few, quite a few. And the current Saviour is turning 20. This is important because when she turns 20, there's a tournament called the Sovereign's Tournament that is held, and people from all throughout the kingdom come to compete for her hand in marriage. 20 men get to enter. So everyone comes and they apply, and 20 are picked. And those who enter have to go into the labyrinth, which sounds like a maze, but it's not. It's just a long tunnel filled with traps, basically. The main character of this novel is Tobias. Now, Tobias doesn't care too much about the Saviour. He doesn't care about glory or anything like that. He enters the tournament because he's the sole provider for his family and he's barely struggling to make ends meet. But with the tournament, it gives him a chance to win some money for his family, because the families of all the competitors who enter get money, a lot of money. Like, Tobias is pretty sure that he's going to die. He doesn't see himself living through the tournament, but he really needs the money for his family, especially for his sister, who is paralyzed from the waist down. He enters the tournament and is thrust into this dangerous situation. He has to deal with deadly traps and challenges. But worst of all are the other competitors, many of whom are very, very happy to kill people. A few of them enjoy it, in fact. Now that's where most of the fantasy and that's where most of the dark fantasy elements coming from, but I did say it was a romance novel as well. Now, as well as all these challenges and stuff, that life-threatening situations that Tobias has to go through, there's also one other major thing going on in his life at this stage, and that's that he meets Layla. Now, Layla is a healer who comes in and heals people up after they have been going through the traps and the challenges and all that. And she and Tobias hit it off really well. Not after their first meeting, but subsequent meetings they hit it off really well. Yeah, they start to develop a friendship and then a romance. However, the men who are in this tournament are meant to be competing for the Saviour. Obviously, Tobias having feelings for another person is against the rules. You know, he's meant to be there for the Saviour. So it's a bit of a forbidden romance. So if you like forbidden romances, this is the book for you, I guess. That's the general gist of what happens. I mean, as the thing goes on, Tobias goes through challenges that get more dangerous. The other competitors try and kill him. He has a few friends as well there, but, you know, some of them start having to leave or get killed or whatever. All through this time, the book's also building up a few of the competitors in particular as antagonists. namely Kaleo, Drake, and Antaeus? Hang on. Let me consult the book. And Antaeus. I think it's Antaeus. Anyway, these guys are really bad news. But yeah, so the story progresses. Tobias has to deal with ever-increasing threats. His relationship with Layla continues to grow more and more. I won't tell you what happens at the end. I'll let you guys read the book to find out. But it's pretty good. Now, when I think of this novel and its strengths, one of the first things that pops to mind is the humour. Obviously, humour is very subjective. Not everyone might appreciate the same kind of humour, but I really found it immensely entertaining. I'll give you my rendition of my favourite joke from the book now. We should take him with us, fry him up on a spit, finally have ourselves a decent meal. Perhaps you shouldn't touch it? Why? Are you scared of this thing? On second thought, let's keep him as a pet. He's a cute little fellow, isn't he? Fuck! It has fangs! It has fucking fangs! That's implausible. It's a pig. It can't have fangs. Right? Pigs don't have fangs. I swear to God, you stupid shit! Are you absolutely certain it had fangs? I'm pretty fucking certain! Overall, though, I don't want to talk too much about humour because, again, it's subjective. But there's a lot of humour in it. I think one of the strongest aspects of this novel, first of all, the romance is really good. I can't say that I've read many romance novels, but I really, really liked this one, which is pretty good. Usually I'm not a huge fan of romance, but to be fair, it's most of the things I've seen it in have been either family movies, which are just generic, and romantic subplots, which, while they can be good, they're not always the focus of their particular thing. Whereas this novel, it is, you know, a big part of the plot. Like, half the book is for the romance. But yeah, I really liked it. The characters, like, they work well together. I buy that they like each other. I think it works well. Another big part of it, though, which I think helps them to connect, is it seems like they're some of the few people there who actually see the games for what they are, which is, you know, a dehumanizing thing where, you know, people die. Like, it's blood sports. Like, it's pretty messed up stuff. People die horribly in this. And the crowds cheer. They go on about doing this for the savior and all that. But the savior isn't really that great of a person. She's really, like, very, I want to say, kind of entitled. I mean, she appears nice when you first meet her, but there's not really much substance there. Like, there's not much to her. She doesn't really see the competitors as people. She sees them as her property, essentially. In the games, the competitors aren't known by their names. They're known by what are called laurels, which are like nicknames. So Tobias is the artist. And then you got, like, you know, the hunter, the shepherd, the giant, the regal, stuff like that. And yeah, like, there's a couple scenes between Tobias and the savior, Cosima, her name is. She, like, just calls him the artist, even after he tells her that his name's Tobias. She doesn't see them as people. In one of the later chapters, she tries to force herself upon Tobias, and he's really, really not wanting to do it. And she like loses it briefly. She maintains her composure a bit later. So whilst that, you got the Proctor and Wembleton, who are two characters that are full of shit. Utter bullshit. And they're the worst. I hate them. I want them both to die. Especially the Proctor. Wembleton is like the announcer guy. He talks to the crowds and all that. He appears very jovial and all that. It's quite funny. Tobias clearly annoys him quite a bit throughout the course of the thing by like talking back to him a bit later on. And then there's the Proctor, who comes in and like he's an older guy, and he kind of talks to the competitors about the trials they're going to face and all that. He just goes on and on and on about garbage and shit and all that. There's this challenge, I think about midway through the story, where they've got to like dive under the water. There's like eagles or some kind of monsters swimming around there, and one of them bites one of the characters, and Tobias like rescues him from the water and drags him out, and he's like bleeding from all these wounds on his chest where the teeth marks are, and he's like saying, oh, we need help, we need a healer. And the Proctor's like, oh, first we must count all the keys that you have collected. And Tobias is like, who gives a shit? Let's, like, he needs help now. And he's like, silence, the counting begins now, you know, shit like that. And then he forces Tobias to take his hand off of him, right? Because Tobias, like, he was like putting pressure on the wound, but he forces Tobias to let go, and forces this guy who's been bitten to just stand there and wait while he's bleeding from a big wound. They try and go over the Proctor's head and say to the Saviour, this man needs help, we can't say to help him, but she doesn't care either. I think it's really effective. I mean, that scene, I think, was really good. It really sold just how awful they are, and it made me hate those characters even more, which made me want to root for Tobias and Layla even more, because they're some of the few characters who actually kind of see how messed up this whole situation is. I think it's really good stuff. I can't wait to see the Proctor die. I want to see him die horribly. I hope that doesn't make me sound like a monster or something. Another thing is the other competitors. There's a big, like, there's a mix of different types of competitors. Like, especially early on, you have a lot of, like, the nothing characters, like the farmer and I think the poet. I think he was the jester. He was the first one, the jester. You have like a lot of these nothing characters, which they're not really there for too long before they get taken out. Their deaths are violent and gory and brutal. One guy gets like literally crushed into a wall. A big bit of stone like crushes him to a wall or something. There's this other guy who he tries to tell a joke. One of the other competitors, Kaleo, doesn't find this very funny, so he just grabs him and smashes his head into the wall numerous times and ends up killing him. Very bad stuff goes on in here. And yeah, there's a lot of just nothing characters that are die early on. Like, they're not bad, they're just kind of there to fill out the roster, and it makes sense. As the story progresses, the rest of the competitors like really take shape as unique characters. There's 3 main types of characters. First of all, the allies. They're the ones that kind of like band together with Tobias and help him out. There's the hunter, who is my favourite. Orion, his name is. He holds a special place in my heart. He's just a good dude. But then you've also got fucking Flynn, who is very arrogant, goes on about himself a lot. There's some like conflict between him and Tobias later on, but for the most part, they're on the same team. The second group are the antagonists. I think I mentioned them earlier, but Kaleo, Drake, and Taeus. They're all unique in their own way. Kaleo is basically Zaz. He carves tally marks on his skin when he kills people, and he likes to kill people, and he's very charismatic. I'm given to understand he's also very popular with the ladies. Then you got Antaeus, who's the giant. Yeah, he's a giant. He's very simple. He likes to swear a lot. He doesn't care at all about the savior, and he lets everyone know. Subtlety is lost on this guy. And then, yeah, there's Drake, who's the quiet one. He doesn't speak very often. He does speak sometimes, though. He's covered in, like, tattoos all over his body, and he believes that these tattoos make him invulnerable or immortal or whatever you want to call it. Is he actually, though? But he thinks he is, which makes him very dangerous. And as I said, he doesn't talk much. But when he does talk, it's usually pretty good. It's usually pretty good stuff. The third group is the Lords. I mean, not all the Lords, like Flynn's kind of in the Allies group, but you got I think it's Caesar, Neil, and fuck, I can't remember the other one. Oh, Bew, that's his name. They kind of like hang around together. They talk about tits. They're arrogant and entitled. Usually a lot of their banter is entertaining to listen to. They're also not the smartest of people. They're not very nice people either. As well as that, you've got a lot of other random characters, like Bjorn. There's a running joke where he's like getting hit with things that should be like really painful or should be fatal, and he just shrugs it off like nothing. He gets hit with an arrow in the head and just like, oh, he's basically got like no brain. He just walks through and survives because he's really tough. It's actually really funny. It doesn't sound like there's much to him, and there isn't, but it's actually very entertaining, all the stuff that happens to him and the way that the other competitors react to him. I think that's one of the key strengths that Jenna has, characters. The characters, they feel like real people. They feel like they're alive. And just the way that they interact with everyone is both entertaining and believable. I could go on, but this video is starting to get a bit long now. I highly recommend this. I think this is my favourite book. Granted, I may not read too many books, but without a doubt, it's got to be my favourite book, hands down. I cannot wait to read the sequel, The Saviour's Sister, which is set at the same time, but it's from Layla's perspective. I think it's meant to have a lot more like politics and some other stuff like that. I'll definitely be covering that book on this channel at some point. I'll probably cover a few other things before I do that. Anyway, stay safe, take care. If you want to see more, then consider subscribing or liking or, you know, doing all that stuff. You've heard it all 1,000 times. You know what to do. All right, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.